I wanted to show you this Russian ZGK combination lock. It's actually Soviet, I should say. It was manufactured September 30th, 1985, according to the seal stamp that's inside of the manual. The manual is in Lithuanian and it's in Russian, and I have scanned it up to a website that will automatically translate it to English. If you're interested for some reason, these are on my Google Drive in PDF form. What I find so interesting about this lock is it's a combination lock, and it uses wheels with gates, but it doesn't use a fence or a lever. It uses ball bearings, and it uses them as if they were sidebars. I'm not aware of another combination lock that operates that way. And I got it apart to save you the time and boredom of me taking it apart so that I can show you how it works. We've got a wheel stack. Each wheel has a pin and it's pressed into one of these tin holes. You can press those out to change the combination and press them back into another hole. I will show you a disassembly of this, because if you ever have one of these for some reason, the ball bearings are spring loaded and they will come out of there like a BB gun, and they will fly across the room, bounce off 15 things, and you'll never find them. So ball bearings, springs, and more ball bearings, because there's two sizes, a 5mm and an Imperial 3/16. Not sure why the 3/16 Imperial, because this was made in the Soviet Union. I'm only assuming that it just happens to be that size because they ground it down to what they needed. Let's see, there is a ball bearing and a spring under here, and I have to keep my thumb right there or else they are going to come shooting out of there like a rocket. Okay, there we go. Each wheel has a slot cut in the interior inside of it. This spring-loaded ball bearing right here is what holds the wheel on the wheel stack. Now I'll show you how it works. You have an inner sleeve and an outer sleeve. I can't put it in there because this goes on later. There is a slot that's milled into the outer sleeve. Right there. There are 3 holes for the wheels for ball bearings and 1 for the drive cam that's on the dial. And I'll just put 1 in there and show you. When the gate's not lined up, the ball bearings are above the inner sleeve. So I guess basically you say they're above the shear line. So they can't come out of this slot for this inner sleeve to turn. But when you line up the gate properly, it'll drop back down in there. You get all 3 gates lined up and the drive cam gate, and then the the inner sleeve here can rotate. Now I'll put it together and show you how it operates. First thing we want to do, right along here, these holes right here are for a ball bearing that's spring loaded, so it detents. There's 10 positions, and each one of those detents into a position. There's a slot milled right here that has 3 ball bearings that go in here, and they keep this from coming out. And the first thing we want to do is we want to get a spring and a ball bearing. We'll put the dial in there. Let's get the ball bearing. And we'll drop a ball bearing in there. And like I said, that's a detent. So when there's pressure on this spring, this stops at one of your numbers, or close to it on this one. The machining on some of this is a little suspect. There is a set screw goes in right there that goes in this hole back here that holds the dial ring on. So we want to get that somewhere close, but you have to push this spring down right here while you're sliding this in there. Otherwise, take my word, you will bend that spring. Then we can line up our hole, and there's a screw right here that came out of there, and that holds the dial ring on. Now, the 3 imperial ball bearings go into these slots. To hold the dial in place. And if you're careful, you can set that down like that and they won't go anywhere. The next thing we've got to do, there is 1 ball bearing for the drive cam that you cannot put in after you put the outer sleeve on. So we will want to go ahead and put it into its slot. And we'll take the outer sleeve, and where the slot is here, we'll line it up with those holes and drop it down on there. Now we have to keep the slot lined up with the holes, so these ball bearings will go down in there, and manually put the other 3 ball bearings in. Now I've got those 3 ball bearings in there. Now we can take our wheel pack, get it close, and there is a large hole right here that this spring and this large ball bearing go into, because when it comes back around to where that slot is, it acts as a detent also to let you know that you've got the wheel pack turned to the right position. So you've got to hold this down like this. You've got to keep the inner sleeve and outer sleeve from turning so the ball bearings stay. You've got to push this one down, hope it doesn't ricochet out of there, and then get the threading started. If you don't do all of those things, those ball bearings will fall out in there. Now, you'll notice there's a set screw right here. I'll show you that going down, but you use it as a pry, and there's that detent. But we want to keep turning until we can't turn anymore. And then back off to that detent. Now we can run the set screw down that keeps this from turning. Okay, there's a beauty ring. Put the beauty ring on there. This part right here that the 4 bolts thread into, we'll screw it down. And we'll take a look. Zeros right here. We've got a bar. It's got this slot milled in it here. there's a pin back here. When this rotates, that's what moves your bar in and out. And depending on which way you put this, whether you have a right hand or a left hand door. There's your Soviet Union emblem, and Soviet locks were marked with the price on them from the factory, so there wasn't any price gouging going on. There are 2 slots right here that line up with this, so you get this the proper way. Then we got 4 bolts that go in. By the way, this lock was originally that yellow zinc, like a lot of bolts are, and it had been sitting in a garage just inside the box since 1985, and it was so corroded from humidity that it was falling off. It was all white. So I wire brushed it all off and did a cold gun blue on it. Okay, so if I've got this assembled correctly, we will turn right till we come to 9. We will go left past 9, back around to 0. We will go right past 0 to 7. And then we'll go back to 4 to line up the drive cam gate. Now, that inner sleeve, which is attached to the dial ring, can turn, and the bolt will retract. When those aren't lined up, it will not retract. I do find it an interesting lock. If you've stuck around this long, sorry to be long-winded, but it's very interesting to me.